Thanks for watching Numbskull News. And today, we're going to get into this outlook on the playoff, the CFP. We only got 1 week left, but holy crap. Were there upsets out the asshole? Let's get started with that because it sets up everything that's going on. Well, let's look at these standings. Let's start with the SEC because this... Oh, I'm telling you right now, people like Josh Pate, who's that little bald imp that talks SEC all the time? Paul Feinbaum. Let me tell you something. That little Smeagol bastard. What do you say when you have one team that has one loss in Texas and has played nobody? They played Georgia and got their ass handed to them, and that's it. And Georgia themselves has 2 losses. Tennessee's got 2 losses, including Arkansas. Then you got A&M, who just got beat by Auburn. And who's the number 5 team is South Carolina, which has no business here, right? Well, here they are, ahead of Alabama, 4-3 in the conference, people. Ala-freaking-Bama, who just lost to Oklahoma, who hadn't been worth a damn all year. Ole Miss couldn't find a way to beat Florida, and everybody's beating Florida. All right, Florida what? They're 4-4 in conference. One of the 4 is Ole Miss. And they fell right back into Missouri's lap. I mean, son of a bitch. But because of this, folks, because of this, Texas, they're in no matter what. If Alabama, you're gone. You're out of there. Goodbye. Goodbye. You're done. Ole Miss, you're done. You know, they're not letting you in but with losing to Auburn. And Auburn still has to beat Alabama just to get bowl eligible. So no, you're gone. I'm sorry, not Auburn. Apologies to Ole Miss. You lost to Florida, who is bowl eligible, and it doesn't matter. You're still gone. You're still gone. But what does that mean with all of this upheaval in the SEC? Well, the Big Ten. Oregon's in no matter what. Ohio State in no matter what. Folks, Indiana's in. Oh my God, they got beat down by Ohio State. It doesn't matter. Record matters. I keep trying to tell you people. Record matters. And they're not going to take a 9-3 team over an Indiana squad who's going to end the year 11-1. It ain't happening. It's not. I don't care if you're an SEC team or not. It's not happening. And if you don't want it to happen, don't lose 3 games. Because the SEC more than likely is only getting 3 teams in this year. 3. That's as most as they could possibly earn. Tennessee they're the biggest beneficiaries of this whole thing. They could have easily been left out. If Texas wins, it's going to be Texas and Georgia. And then Tennessee is the only other 2-loss team in the SEC. And they'll get in because they're in the SEC. They've had a decent year, and they've had a good schedule. They won some decent games. They beat some people. They beat Alabama, which right now doesn't look as good as it did. So, but they'll get in. They'll get in. Now let's go to the ACC. And by the way, I will get to the Big 12 momentarily. SMU, Miami. I don't see them dropping another game. That's going to be your title game. The winner will get in. And now, because of what happened in the SEC, the loser will probably get in. That's right. You'll probably get SMU and Miami. And by the way, you might get Clemson in as well. If they could beat South Carolina, that's a really, really good win. That would look really good on a resume for Clemson. But if you go down the list here of the ACC, this is not a bad freaking conference at all. I mean, right now, what do they have? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teams right now that are bowl eligible. The same amount that the SEC has. With Syracuse at 8-3, Duke at 8-3. You got Louisville and Georgia Tech at 7-4. You got Pitt at 7-4. I mean, this is not a bad squad. This is not a bad conference. You know, I'm always looking to take a giant shit. And look at freaking Cal down here. They're 6-5. Holy hell. And then you got Florida State. Oh my God. That is embarrassing. You can't get above Stanford. Anyway, there's a really good chance that all three top of the ACC get into the freaking playoff, which I hate. Because here's the Big 12, folks. And by the way, as far as bowl eligibility, right now we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the 16 that are bowl eligible right now. Kansas is looking like they're going to get there. Cincinnati, I don't know. But at the most amount you can get is 11? So the Big 12 is actually a pretty good conference as well. I mean, look at Arizona State. They were back a ways just a couple of weeks ago, and they've climbed all the way to the top of this bitch. What a freaking great job by Arizona State. Iowa State, they lost a couple, but they made a comeback. They're here. They're ready to go. They have to win Farmageddon. They have to beat Kansas State. Kansas State, still, they're not a joke. At all, they're not a joke. Look at freaking Baylor. 5 in a row. They've won 5 freaking games in a row to get to 7-4. And I just want to point out TCU 7-4 as well. Son of a bitch. If Iowa State drops the ball, BYU gets in. And Colorado. Holy crap. The latest victim of Kansas coming out of nowhere. Great year by Colorado. Either way, if you see Colorado in the Big 12 title game, oh, this conference is so screwed. But what's going to end up happening is one of these top 3 teams is going to win the conference, and they're going to be the only team from the Big 12 to get in. I don't see anybody else. Whoever gets left out. All right, let's say Iowa State beats Kansas, faces Arizona State. Let's say BYU wins their last game. I believe it's Houston they got. And BYU sitting there at 10-2. And one of these two teams gets that playoff spot. Is there going to be an at-large for BYU? Or for a 10-3, one of these two? No, there's not. Not this year. It could have been the Big 12, but the ACC is the one that stepped up, actually. I have to tell the truth. The ACC, SMU, Miami, Clemson, they're the ones that stepped up, and they haven't dropped the ball late. BYU has dropped the ball late. Iowa State dropped the ball late. And Colorado has dropped the ball late. Arizona has been in the background just chewing away at this bitch. They've won 4 straight to get to where they're at. 4. So, kiss Arizona State's ass. They deserve to be at the top of this thing. Yeah, there's only going to be one from the Big 12. There's no way out of it. I can't, with all of my Big 12 biases, I can't find a way in there. I can't. So now let's give the overall picture here. And let me start by eliminating people. I wanted to give Army some credit. They only have 1 loss. It is to Notre Dame. They kicked their ass. Boise State has not faced a Notre Dame, and not this Notre Dame, or else they would also be out. So, and for whatever reason, the CFP, they really value the Mountain West over the American, even though the American is a far superior conference this year. Look at the records. Look at the record. Look at Tulane. Look at Memphis. And Army. I mean, I'm sorry. That's just, But they do have a shot. If Army wins the American and Boise State loses the Mountain West, the championship, then Army would be in. But that's not likely to happen, so I'm going to eliminate Army out of this. Like I said, I think A&M has a shot if they beat Texas to get into the SEC title game. But I still don't think that's going to happen, so I'm going to eliminate them. And no one else can be eliminated. But with the SEC, and I'm sorry, they have shit all over themselves. You got 1 loss, 2 loss, 2 loss. And these teams don't play each other for the last game. Georgia has Georgia Tech. Tennessee has, I don't know, somebody. They got to win. I'll tell you that. They got a win coming up. Texas has A&M. And if A&M can lose to Auburn, they can lose to Texas. I'm telling you that right now. Maybe it was a trap game. Maybe they're looking ahead to the Longhorns and didn't think about it. Well, tough shit on them. But what that means is Notre Dame, even if they lose to USC, and in the year 10-2, they're in the playoffs, people. There's not enough SEC talent to knock them out. You can't make the case for Alabama over Notre Dame. You can't make the case for Ole Miss over Notre Dame. Even with a loss to Northern Illinois, you can't make that case. No. Why? Because Notre Dame beat A&M. They beat one of your top SEC teams already. And these other SEC, I'm sorry, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Now they lost to basically a 500 Oklahoma squad. Who's a bowl game? They'll make a bowl game. Oklahoma, the Sooners, will be in a bowl game this year. They got bowl eligible with that win. Give them a golf clap. Good luck. Okay. But when we're talking SEC, we're talking dominance here, and this ain't the year where you're seeing dominance from the SEC. I'm sorry. You can't make the excuse. Well, they're just beating each other. No, the lower teams in the SEC are beating the upper teams. What does that tell you? It tells you the upper teams aren't as good as they usually are. This isn't the normal Georgia team we're used to seeing. It isn't, it's not the Alabama that we're used to seeing. I believe all three of these teams are getting into the playoffs out of the SEC, but they'll only get 3. I thought it was going to be 4. I didn't see Alabama losing to Oklahoma. Okay, I had them in there. I didn't see Ole Miss losing the freaking who Ole Miss? Florida. I didn't see that happening. I didn't see A&M losing to Auburn. I didn't see that shit happening, but it happened. And guess what? They all just eliminated themselves from playoff contention. Why? Because record freaking matters, people. It matters. I don't care what SEC homer, what SEC guy on his knees slurping up whatever Paul Feinbaum and Greg Sankey tell them. Record matters. And when you have a Big Ten, yes, all 4 of them, Indiana getting their ass handed to them by Ohio State. They're getting in, people. There's no 3-loss SEC team that's going to take precedence over Indiana. It ain't happening. And if you look at the Big Ten, this is what it looks like when your top teams are beating each other. Oregon beats Ohio State. Ohio State beats Indiana and Penn State. That's it. It's the only losses in that conference. And Ohio State might just beat Oregon in a title game. That could happen. Wouldn't count on it, but it could happen. Clemson beats South Carolina. It's going to be tough to leave them out of the playoffs. But first they got to do it. But let's just do the numbers real quick. 4 from the Big Ten, 3 from the SEC. That's 7. 8 with Notre Dame. I don't give a damn what happens in the last game of the season. They're getting in. That's 8 teams. G5. More than likely, Boise State. That'll be 9 teams. ACC champ will make 10. Big 12 champ will make 11. So you have to ask who the 12th team is. Well, it's going to be one of these 3. It's simple. It's going to be one of those ACC teams. And there's just not enough. There's not enough SEC teams with a good enough record to say that if Clemson and Clemson has the brand value, they have the recognition. The CFP committee knows Clemson. They know them very well. And if they beat South Carolina, in my humble opinion, they're in. Miami, if they win out, they're in. SMU, same thing. Now, one of these teams may get left out. I don't know who it would be. I can't tell you. Could the Big 12 get left out of the playoffs altogether? Like I said, if Colorado makes their way into the title game, if Iowa State loses Farmageddon, if Houston beats BYU, if Arizona somehow beats Arizona State, all right, and it's one of these teams by default against Colorado, the Big 12 may very well get completely left out of the playoffs. Not even a damn at-large for our champion. No. Because at that point, would they be ranked above, let's say, Army or Tulane or Memphis wins the freaking American? Would this champ be in? I think they're going to get there. I don't see all that hubbub happening. You know, there's a dust up, of course, in the Big 12. Ask BYU, ask Iowa State, ask Kansas State. Now you can ask Colorado. So that dust up happened, but this last week of the season, no. I mean, maybe one of these teams falls on their ass. You know, Iowa State can very easily lose to Kansas State. That can very well happen. And then it's Arizona State versus BYU rematch, and the winner goes to the playoff. So yeah, that's the freaking craziness. But I mean, this season has been outstanding. And look, I know I'm taking a shit on the SEC, but what a freaking fun year they've had. If you're a South Carolina fan, you've had an amazing year. Amazingly fun year. Of course, if you're a Texas fan or a Georgia fan, but if you're just an SEC homer, incredible fun year. You should be, of course, you should be proud. I mean, that's actually what parity looks like. However, look at the top three that's left. I just want to point this out. Texas, does that surprise anybody that Texas is at the top? Shouldn't. Georgia, they're right there at the top. Should it shock you? No. Tennessee, that's a huge brand. They made a comeback. It shouldn't shock anybody. Now, if South Carolina had been up there, or Arkansas had been one of the top three, or Mizzou had been one of the top three, I think that's a little bit more what parity looks like. Let me show you what parity looks like. Again, this is the Big 12. Arizona State being at the top is shocking. Nobody had them. I mean, before the season started, everyone had them down here, bottom three. Iowa State, not shocking. Not shocking. A lot of people had them in the top 3 or 4 preseason. I think I may have had them, I don't know, 4th, 5th. I don't think Iowa State was in my top. Maybe 5th or 6th. But not surprised. BYU, right here, 9-2, 6-2 in the conference. That's surprising. Even though they've just dropped 2 games, that's shocking to see BYU where they are. Nobody had Colorado up here. Right now, they're top 4 in the conference. No one had that. Baylor has sucked ass the last couple of years. So to see them ranked number 5 in the conference right now, I mean, that saves Homeboy's job. That saves their head coach job. I mean, that's your top 5. And I think outside of Iowa State, that's shocking that that's your top 5. I had Kansas State, Kansas, Utah. All those were in my top 4 coming in, like the most likely to win the whole thing, with Oklahoma State. And 2 of my picks are dead ass last and suck nuts this year. So I was a little off. Kansas has sucked nuts most of the year. And they need the final win of the year to get bowl eligible. And then you got what? Kansas State, which is still underperformed a little bit. But I think, you know, some people would tell you it's next year. Well, okay. I still thought they had the squad to do it this year. But whatever. You want to say next year. So yeah, that's parity, folks. I mean, there were people in the SEC. When you're talking top teams, I mean, you're talking Tennessee, you're talking Georgia, you're talking Texas, you're also talking Alabama and Ole Miss. And by the way, they're all up there, but it's the Vanderbilts and the Arkansas and the Floridas and the Auburns, the teams on the lower end of the SEC that are beating the upper end. Still, the top teams end up at the top, don't they? Top brands, some of the biggest brands of the SEC are up at the top. It's not like Auburn's number one. All right. Kentucky ain't number one. Vanderbilt is not number one. Mississippi State sure as hell isn't. They're not up there. It's Texas. It's Georgia. It's Tennessee. Here, the shitbag teams. I mean, BYU, they were 5-7 last year. They are way above that. Colorado was 4-8. Arizona sucked ass. Arizona State sucked ass last year. Look where they're at. But that's what I'm talking about, parity. It could be any of these teams. It could have been Kansas. I mean, look, they got 6 losses on the year. They didn't lose one of those games by double digits. And they just beat 3 in a row, 3 ranked teams in a row as a sub-500 team. Never happened before in college football history. It happened this year. This is what parity really looks like. The SEC, I don't think they'll get less than 3 teams in. They'll have 3. There's no case to be made for Indiana not getting into the playoff, Mr. Josh Pate, Mr. Greg Sankey, or any other dumbass SEC homer out there. Indiana's got 1 loss, and that's going to be to one of the top, absolute top teams in the country, Ohio State. I believe in the CFP, they're still ranked number 2 in the country. That's your 1 loss. You got beat down. Yeah, you did. But it's 1 loss. Let that be a lesson to people that record matters. I know strength of schedule matters, but not as much as your fucking record. It never has. I mean, TCU, a few years, 2 years ago, got into the playoff after they had an undefeated regular season, lost the conference title to Kansas State. And there were people advocating, hey, Alabama should be in there above TCU. Did they get in? No. Did they have a better strength of schedule? Yeah. Than TCU? Yeah. You can make that case. You can make that argument. However, the record did not indicate that. The CFP committee does look at record, like it or not. And I can't blame them. Record should be the number 1 consideration. Right behind that is strength of schedule. And I mean right behind it. It's very important. Not as much as your overall record. I am sorry. It's just the way it is. It's the way it should be. But yeah, just because you're a big brand doesn't mean you should be way the hell up there. You got to earn it. And this year, you got the ACC that's kicking ass. The Big Ten has 4 legitimate teams. Notre Dame, 1 loss with 1 to go. And there's the SEC falling apart. Falling the fuck apart, especially late in the year. 3 of your top teams just lost by upset fashion. Bad losses. Bad losses. They weren't good losses. These were bad. You didn't just lose to Texas. You didn't just lose to Georgia or Tennessee. You got hit by the underclassmen, by the dregs of the SEC. You're out. There's no coming back. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some more crap later. Bye.